And I will start by saying my name is Janice Demos Durox. I'm president of Basalt Heritage Society. And throughout the years, we've been doing discussions with a lot of local people trying to get histories. And so for a couple of years, I've been really excited about the history of the library. And I realized that there's not much written down all in one place. So that's what we're here today, is to talk about the history of the Basalt Regional Library, find out when it became a regional also. So a couple things that I wanted to say personally. I was born in Glenwood, and I've lived here most all my life. Our family we lived outside of Basalt, and we weren't that involved with the library, so a lot of this I really don't know the history of, and so it's going to be fun to find out how the library became. When I started school in 1956, there was a library at the elementary school, and I remember using that, checking out books and using that. And in that time, there wasn't, I don't believe, a library in Basalt. I haven't found that. So what I do remember, though, is we all went to the Methodist church, which was up on 2nd Street. And suddenly, a bunch of the ladies, the moms and the kids, were bringing in books. And so a room in the back of the Methodist church up on the 2nd floor where the sanctuary was, became the first library, I believe, of Basalt. People just brought their books, and people just took books and brought them back. And so it was kind of an informal beginning. It involved Charlotte Nelson, who had lived up on the Frying Pan. She and Leon ranch is at the bottom of the Rudai Reservoir, and so they had moved down valley.
Not anymore.
It's
not at the bottom of the reservoir.
It's not the bottom.
No.
It moved up, no.
Covered up with water.
Yeah, that's what I mean. At the bottom of the reservoir, it's covered with water. It's gone. So they moved down in the Aspen Junction area, and she became involved in the church part. And then I also talked to Marilyn Lee Woolley, who, her mom, Helen Woolley, was also part of the church. And those two ladies, I think, may have been instrumental in kind of getting that started at the church. Then I don't know the date as to when the little cabin on Main Street came along. Dick Dusick said that Jan came, I just talked to him this morning, they came in 71, 72, and she went to work at the library in Aspen. She didn't have a degree, but she had worked in libraries all along. So they said he felt that the Little Log Cabin was a branch of Pickens County's library. Jan was working there, and so she, of course, volunteered to move down here and work at the one in Basalt, rather than already then drive to Aspen. Nobody wanted to drive to Aspen then either. And so anyhow, she and Charlotte worked together in that Little Log Cabin. And he said that he remembers Jan was the one in 72 to 73 who started the paperwork, went to the Eagle County Commissioners through the town of Basalt and said, we need a library. So what I want to know is everyone knows any other story other than that you think is how it went from the Methodist church back room to the Little Log Cabin, or who owned the Little Log Cabin.
I think Clint Paul must have owned it, because when the library moved out.
Talk loud so they get you.
When they moved out, they gave that little log cabin to the shooting range.
To the shooting range.
Yeah.
So Dick is thinking that by 76, I had invited John Spencer. He's the one that built that library in Lions Park. 76, he was at the bank at Basalt. He had moved down from the bank in Aspen. So Dick Dusick felt that between 73 and 76 is when the library at the Lions Park was built.
I was on town council then, and they came to us, and we gave them a lease on the land, the library district.
Now, had they formed a district at
I
that
think
time?
they
That's
had.
part of what Jan had done,
Yeah.
was make a taxing
Yes, that they had a
taxing district.
And-
I'm sure that was the only way she could get a library.
Right. And we leased them that land back there, and they built it with their own money then.
Which was Lions Park.
Lions Park, yeah.
Which at one time was the Y for the Colorado Midland Railroad, which is just a little fun tidbit there.
Yeah.
Main Street was and I always say new people don't know that. the Main Street of Basalt was the main line of the Colorado Midland Railroad. And the Y is where they had buildings and they turned the railroad around. And then Lions Club was a nonprofit organization that was in the valley. And they worked at putting a little grass there and a few picnic tables and doing whatever to make that into Lions Park. That's then the library came along. So I was just wondering how many of you remember. I mean, Debbie, what year all did you guys come to Basalt? Do you remember?
I was born here.
You were born here, right? I thought so. And the cabin was up, you remember the cabin? Main Street.
I can't remember if there was already a building there, but just men from the community, probably some of the husbands of those ladies. But I remember my dad, Frank P. Jack, Jim Crowley, all getting together like in the evenings and on Saturdays and working on that building.
Putting shelves and things
Yeah.
in.
And then just like my mom and a lot of the ladies just volunteered time to check out books to people.
Right. So tell me your name and your maiden name.
Oh, Debbie Redmond Kelly. So my dad was Orville Redmond. And I remember my mom would let us, we had 5 kids in our family, but she'd let 1 or 2 of us go with her to the library. And so we'd get to sit in that little back room, all surrounded by books, and we could sit on the floor and we had to be really quiet and read books. And it was so fun.
Yeah. And so that would have been 19.
Had to be 60,
60.
but I don't know.
Steve,
So,
say your name.
Steve Child. We moved here in May of 1961. So that next fall, I was in the 8th grade, and the red brick building was the only Basalt school there was. And we, all the time, were going down across the Swinging Bridge. And the cabins that were there were the Wolf's cabins. And one of those is what became the Basalt Library, but in 1961 it wasn't yet. I don't remember the exact year that my mom became involved.
And your mom was who?
T. Child. Carolyn is her given name, but she became one of the volunteers. And as I remember it, Eva Hyrup was the
I bet so.
head librarian. I
Okay.
think it was all volunteer stuff. And it was probably in at least 1962 or 1963, I'm thinking, when I don't know what the deal was on the cabin, if it was given to them or who gave it to them. I don't know who Wolf was,
Yeah, I
but
didn't
that
know
was
either.
Wolf's Cabins
That was
was
before our
the
time, yeah.
name of that.
Yeah.
All of the books were donated books. Anybody who had extra books, they just donated it. That's how they got the
Premise, yeah.
collection together. And as I remember, most of them were paperback books. I don't think there were very many hardbound books. So my
And
mom,
children's books, like Debbie said. I think there were a lot of children's books.
yeah. So that to me was the beginning, and they probably had moved it's probably moving from the Methodist Church over to there, and whatever books they had there would have
So there was,
moved over with
see, in
that.
the 60s, so then what Dick's telling us makes sense, because then by 72, that little cabin has become a branch of Pitkin County. They're starting to bring books in to help out then. That kind of makes sense, that that's how it would have gone along. It went from volunteer to a little bit of financial help, maybe through Pitkin County, who knows. And then that's when Jan then worked at trying to get the Basalt. And I don't think, was it called Basalt Regional always?
No,
It was just
Basalt Library.
I thought so, just Basalt Library. Because I was thinking, that was the time frame when we were in high school. And we always had a parade right down Midland Main Street by the library and whatever. I did ask Dick how he thought some of that was financed, and he felt it was all volunteer. And any of the money that was used there in that log cabin was probably all donated by the townspeople. He felt that the bank of Basalt started in 76. So he said after that, he knew that there was donations, that some of the businesses and the banks had started getting involved in it. But before that, Basalt didn't have a bank or didn't have much had a few restaurants, a few liquor stores, post office, a pharmacy, right, a pharmacy. So we were still a pretty little country town, that's for sure. So then I guess we all remember, Dwight, you remember it all the same time Steve remembers it. You remember the library. Was your mom involved in the library?
No, she wasn't involved. My name is Dwight Moore. And we were basically 10 miles out of town, so it was not something we did very often. It had been a very special purpose going to town for anything.
Yeah. Okay, so we established that it probably was one of Wolf Gavin's that was probably, rather than brought in, just remodeled. But like you said, the gentleman in the town, how exciting that they wanted a library, got it built, got it staffed. So then Charlotte and Jan Dusick were running the library. So then, once they got the commissioners behind them, and they must have, everyone in this little area must have voted for a mill levy through an election to get a special district, a library district going. So that would have been probably the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, I would assume.
Well, it's still that, when we moved here in 72, in October of 72, it was still there.
It was still there. I think, in my mind, that it stayed there a while after the new library was built, or am I dreaming? But somehow we had to get the books, where all those books probably weren't taken to the library. Did you know? I mean, they probably purchased books and didn't bring these. We probably had the first big book sale, wasn't it? We all remember those big book sales. Linda, did you help as soon as you moved here with a big book sale?
I did.
So that tells us that Linda Crossland has been with the library since she moved here in 1972. Some way, volunteering, having at the end of every year a great big book sale. So tell us a little bit about the big book sale.
Well, every year we had books that we need to get rid of, and we stored them. And then 2 days we did the book sale, and we did it in the park. And
Hauled them there.
the guys would go with us, and we'd load the books up in the pickups, take them down to the park, set them up. Of course, people are instantly there looking through the books. But finally, it got to be so big, and we had so many books left over that we eventually made arrangements with different people to come and get them. At one point, I think they were taken down to Mexico, or I could be wrong. It could have been, I don't think it was.
Probably.
Could have been
Reservation or something.
and to a reservation at one point, and then we had a group. The last group, as I recall, was from over there on the way to Denver. Where were they from? The ski areas.
Don't
look at me.
ski areas.
Anyway,
This is our age group, we're all fine.
Know each other too well.
anyway.
But Glenwood used to come up. The Glenwood Springs Library used to come up and pick up the boxes of books that we hadn't sold. And we took a lot of them up to Aspen too, because they had a bookstore.
A bookstore
Yeah,
in their library.
and that involved picking up books and putting them in boxes.
And we got tired of that, reboxing them.
Well, and I wasn't helping. For some reason, our family wasn't involved. Well, and actually, when I think back to it, and that's probably why until lately I haven't been so into reading books and being in the library, was because my mom and dad were not. Dad had his newspaper every day. He had a cattleman's thing that he read. Mom had magazines, and she, towards the end, got the Reader's Digest, arrived with the little short stories. But not living in Basalt, which we weren't that far away, we were like five miles away. But I think as we lived in this valley, each family or each mom and dad or something had a group that they got involved with. And my mom and dad happened to be in the Rebecca's and the Oddfellows, and that was where they spent their time. And then, as people moved in, like Linda and Barb, the library was probably important to them and their parents from where they left. So then they got involved with the library where they moved to. And so thank goodness we had ladies back in the 50s and 60s that wanted us all to have books and got the library started.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of a tribute to the old-time volunteers. So now we'll talk about the library in the park. And do you know, when did you start volunteering?
I started when the library, I'm Barbara Milner. I've been here 54 years. When I was 2.
2, yeah.
Hardly. I started volunteering in the cabin, reading stories, and then I worked. I cannot tell you, I can't tell the IRS if I was paid to work there, but I remember spending a lot of time at the desk, looking up across the street at the apartment above the 2 rivers.
The bar.
That's another meeting.
Yeah.
My kids were young.
Bar.
My library card, my old pink library card, if you remember those, was number 7434. But I can't tell you if I got it in the log cabin or if I got it over here
In Lyons.
in Lance Park. And I remember Jan, I was friend of Jan Duzik's. There was another woman in there and I called everybody I know.
And Dick didn't know who the other lady was either.
I made it up.
Say what you
Judy, well, I thought her name was Judy, what did I tell you?
Hancock.
Hancock. Does that name sound familiar? She's probably my 3rd grade teacher in Iowa. But at any rate, the first librarian that I remember, besides Jan, was Annette Milliron. And she worked over in the library next to Town Hall. I remember her because I worked for her, but also she brought her husky to work every day.
And now she had a degree in library.
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah.
Yes, because she left here and went to a larger library system.
So that was the first librarian per se certified.
Yes.
That's what he said, that Jan couldn't move up into the library because she did not have a degree in library.
Well, we'll address that later because I never had a degree.
I know, but she was best.
No, I was the only one.
The only one that was.
If you want to have a good job, just be the only one that raises your hand. And then I believe that Annette Milliron turned it over to Jean Winkler, who was one of our,
Yeah, we all
was
remember.
a wonderful librarian.
Yes.
And then I'm going to say that Linda Levy was the next one. Do you remember Linda Levy?
Yes.
She was terrific. Linda Levy was in the building next to the building that was bombed in the Oklahoma City bombing. She was taking a library tour with a bunch of other professionals, and the building that she was in sustained damage also, but nobody was injured.
Wow.
Librarians love this crap. They're little, you know.
Well, and the thing that I remember about the time when Jean Winkler was the director is that it was the first time that anyone, and I think it was Laura Anderson, who brought up, we need to start having books in Spanish. And so between Laura and Jean, we started a Spanish collection.
Wow, that's a lot of years ago. That was
20 years ago.
Early 80s,
And also
early 80s.
you're gonna be sorry you asked me to come.
I love it. I don't
The
know.
board wanted the librarians, the directors of the library to live within the library district. And so don't bother to apply for a job if you didn't live in the library district.
So tell me a little bit about the board as we start. I forgot to go to that. So once we got a library district passed by the voters,
Yeah.
which would have been Picayune and Eagle, because
That's right.
Basalt's half and half and half.
Mhm.
So the library district is Picayune and Eagle. Then, because we had a district, we then must have needed board of directors. Is that the way it went?
Mhm.
Okay, so then that would have been at the same time we built the library in the park,
Yes.
is when we got board of directors.
Yeah.
And
Who was the first one of those, do you remember?
Your friend in Solvang was on,
Pat Fallon.
Pat Fallon was on the library board. Who else?
I don't think she was on the library board when we built this building. I don't think she was
Yeah, I
on.
remember
she
her
wasn't.
picture in the
Yeah.
room.
For this
okay.
library, but not
Yeah,
for Lions.
this is
But now
her-
you were in, when were you on board?
In the 80s?
So you were there when they were doing the library into the Lions Park.
Yes, well, yes.
You were town council,
I was on town
and
council.
once you left town council, then you went on the library board.
Yes.
Okay.
And,
Some more thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda.
no, and,
And there was usually one from Eagle County, one from Pickens County.
two.
Two.
Were there not
Now,
seven?
is that how it is now?
There've always been seven.
So there would have been three, and one.
Mhm.
Okay. One at large?
One.
Basalt gets one.
Oh.
At least that's how
I think that's
How it is now.
That's the way to set it up.
it's, as long as I.
So 3 Pickens, 3 Eagle,
And one Basalt.
1 Basalt.
But the one in Basalt can do an Eagle one.
Sure. Or Pickens, if they.
And then there's a president of the board, I mean, they're officers.
Mhm.
Okay. I really don't know, because at one time I was going to run, and that was when Leroy was in politics in the town of LaSalle. And I thought, that's probably a conflict. And it was probably a good excuse too, but that's what happened. And so then I didn't get involved just a few years ago, volunteering, because there was always an excuse. But just think of all the volunteers that, how wonderful.
Yes.
Because I know at the library in Lions Park, there were always a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, they were.
And
And
with
they-
Jean and everyone.
They also remodeled the library in the park at one point, remember that?
Enlarged it. Enlarged and remodeled. And I don't have those dates, and I thought I could find it online, so I don't know. We're in the 80s, the 90s. Does anyone
Jerry
know?
Jerry Twilliger would know that because he worked on it.
Well, I know, and I invited him, but
That's not a very hard search.
it shouldn't be.
I was
Yeah.
too busy trying to think of all the directors. Yeah,
Did you write all the directors
I
down?
think I got them all.
Good, well, just name them so that they get credit. Because that is a volunteer job, I believe, there's no payment.
She means executive director, not.
Executive director
Oh.
has never been a volunteer job.
No, that's a paid one. But I was thinking the board of directors, I was thinking the volunteers are the board of directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started with Jan Dusick, Annette Milliron, we went to Jean Winkler, Linda Levy. I get a little foggy. We had a director named Rob Heckel, who was here in the old library for about a year. Britton Lund, who ended up going back to Salt Lake City. I worked for Steve Cottrell, and I think that's when they started building this building, was when he was the director. And then when we moved in, we had Kristen Becker. We had a woman named Barb Milner, Ann Scott. I can't remember Sue's last name.
Kylie.
Thank you.
What?
Kylie.
And then tell me, you won't remember.
And then there was I'm gonna burn this.
No, I'm gonna give it to Amy.
And then, well, she can't read my writing. And then, there was an interim for 5 months.
Times, right?
Barb Milner came back, and then we hired Amy.
Amy, who is currently our
Yes.
librarian here. Well, that's great. That's the kind of stuff we need preserved. We just need to I don't know why, nobody's probably gonna care but me, but I do care. I like to get the history written down and because, just look at us. When I was in high school, we drove by that cabin for every day for how long? And then suddenly you start thinking about it and you don't remember. Where was the drugstore and where was there and who was in the drugstore and who was, and if you don't write it down, someday no one ever remembers. All the volunteers that have helped us always have a library, which I think.
So we built this one, I can remember begging to have a little space,
Yeah, talk out loud.
a used book space store. And I was so happy when we got one because we didn't.
Need to haul the books to the library to sell anymore, or to the park to sell anymore.
But then box them up again and put them someplace else. So it was great when we got the bookstore.
And so that happened in 2010, and I'm going to read a little blurb that I've taken from the Aspen Daily News that I just think is well written. And it'll make us all remember, because all of us were probably here at the dedication. It was written by Brent Gardner Smith and this was dedicated on January 9th, 2010. And a small crowd stepped out of the crisp, cold air and assembled in the stuffy old Basalt Library building behind Town Hall promptly at 9 a.m. on Saturday. The building, emptied of its looming stacks of books, seemed bigger than it ever had. On behalf of the Basalt Regional Library District Board of Trustees and staff, Mr. Mayor, I would like to present you with the key to this building. Kristen Becker, the Executive Director of the Library District, said to Basalt Mayor Leroy Durox. A cheer went up. Becker then called out, "Now, how about we walk over to the new building?" Several gleeful librarians, must have been Bart, not knowing for singing on the job, then broke into a choir of na 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 goodbye. Isn't that great?
We were stuffed in that building. That building was this size.
Yeah,
It
it was so little.
Pardon me, ever.
No, I love it, that's it. Goodbye to their 26 years, cramped and dark 3,000 square foot library building, which the town now plans to lease to a local nonprofit group. Hello to their new, bright, airy, and inspirational 20,000 square foot library and community center that opened on Monday, January 4th. A group of about 75 joyful and slightly militant bookworms then paraded across the Roaring Fork River, down the center of Midland Avenue, walking to the new library building next to the Basalt Post Office. So, there's a little bit more. I just think this is interesting. Under the sheltering roof of the building's front entrance, State Senator Gail Swartz of Snowmass Village presented Bud Eiler, the Library District Board President, with an American flag that had been flown at her request over the Colorado State House. A Boy Scout troop presented the colors, raised the flag of the new flagpole, and led the group in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then inside the long, narrow lobby that separates the community room from the main library with a glass wall, Becker thanked the Basalt Library Board and staff. She gave special thanks to Assistant Library Director Barbara Milner, noting her 22 years of dedication to the library, and then she cut the ribbon on the $11 million project. So I think that just kind of summed it up, but I want to know, my question is, how did the books get from the library, and I think I know, the library in Lyons Park, 2 long country blocks to the new library?
Truck, professionals. Yeah, there's no other way to do that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And they had to be put on the shelves in the correct order. I wasn't in charge of that.
I bet you were.
No, that was a lot of planning, but
I was going to
they
say.
sat in those boxes for a long time too, because you don't know when you're gonna open.
Yeah.
And also, I remember that when we checked out books at the old library, we were told to not return them to the old library. We got to keep them for a few months until the new library was opened, and of course, drop them off at the new library. So hopefully that made up a substantial part of what had to be returned, but there was probably more to be moved than there was to be returned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had a pretty significant opening day budget of books, so we had all the extra books to put in.
So now when you were in the library in Lyons Park, how was the budget? Was that?
That was Charlotte Nelson's job,
Yeah.
and I had that job for a while, but was moved on because that obviously isn't my wheelhouse.
You'd rather pick the book,
Yeah.
not figure out where the money's coming from.
The writing on the back of that picture, I'm going through my parents' belongings now, and I sent that to them when I took that picture. That's what that means.
Yeah.
That's the explanation. I don't remember what the budget was. It was wonderful to be able to buy books.
Here.
Yeah. And I also can remember too that I don't think this library ever lost. We have never lost an election.
Right.
It was a big deal to be approved as a district.
We lost the election to move it to
Lyons Park.
Townsville.
Oh, that one. We were talking about doing a branch.
Yeah.
Branch, I do remember that now, a branch
Because
of
that's when we formed the Friends of the Library.
That was my next question, when that started.
Yeah.
So you were campaigning, trying to get the Algebel
We're just trying to get a new library.
somewhere,
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Uh-huh. It did make, you know, an impression, I think, that people wanted the library in Basalt.
Right, because the thought was moving it to because it's a regional library, somewhere along the line, regional came into it. Yes, why is it in Basalt? It could be in Algebel. It could have been in Pickens County. The library could have been in many places. But then that did make the Basalt people say, I think I want the library in Basalt.
Yes.
So that was good.
It's my understanding that the Pitkin County line is halfway between here and the post office. So I parked in Pitkin County to come to this meeting.
Yeah, it was very
And
close.
I think they had to do that to become a regional library district. You can't be a district without straddling different counties.
And that's originally, way back when they built the high school, it was deliberately, Basalt Union High School was built right along the line between Pickens and Eagle County so that they would get taxpayer money from both, and thus this too. So this was also an interesting piece of parcel because we ride over the bridge now as we come around here and drive by the post office. And the post office was built in 2003. And so for a long time, you came to the post office, but there was not a bridge that went on over to tie in with Midland Avenue. And that was the dream of townspeople, was to get that bridge to come across. Or do you think the bridge was built by 2003? Am I in error?
I don't know, but I don't remember it not.
I thought the bridge was always there.
No.
No, it was 7-Eleven bridge, says
7-Eleven bridge, okay.
Yeah.
they did the underpass out here in 2016. The 7-Eleven bridge became a walking bridge. I think I'm in error. 2012, and I do have the Midland Avenue Bridge was the late 1990s, so I'm in error. Because then the post office was in 2003, so I'm wrong. Alice Stott was the one her properties where the bridge comes over. And these different, the property that the library is on and the post office is on, was Few property, which is Alice Stott's parents' property. I think there were developers, Crossland and Adams were in on the land
Well, they owned it, yeah, they had bought it.
from a Few family. So without that bridge, this wouldn't have been as convenient. Plus, the goal was to get all the traffic away from the schools. Before this Midland Bridge, everything went by the school, along with Highway 82.
Yeah.
Went right by the schools for all those years. So in the long-range plan, that was the idea. The post office wanted somewhere, and then the library was the second thought. Took a lot of persuading, I think, somewhere along the line to get the people to vote for it all. And then, City Market, we lost City Market, it went to Algebel. And so, it's just kind of an interesting how it all progressed.
Janice,
Some was planned and some was not.
before we get too far away from the statement you just read about the opening of this building, we have that flag and a letter written by,
Still, how wonderful.
what's her name?
Gail Schwartz.
We have it framed and it's hanging near the circulation desk in the library. So we still have that flag.
Wonderful, yes.
Yeah, really nicely done.
That is great. Yeah. I had a few more little things. That they talked about, I've never worked on a project that I am prouder of or one that went any more smoothly, Eiler said. And it is a joy to watch little kids come to this library. It's like they can't even touch the ground, they are so excited. Yeah, and then the Eiler and board member Pat Fallon of Basalt served on the building committee for the project, and Eiler complimented the district's entire 7-member board of working well together. Board included Carol Dresner, Judith Royer, David Fiore, Liz Germillion, and Tyler Lieben. I don't know, are most of those people still there? Are they still live in the valley?
Bud is passed.
Bud has passed away. The architects and contractors was included A4 Architects of Carbondale, OZ Architect of Denver, B&H General Contractors of Glenwood Springs. Also on the project were Group 3 planners, a library planning firm from Greeley, the Weber Inc., a project management firm in Centennial that served as the library district's owner's representative. The feedback has been incredible. And that's the kinds of adjectives I'm getting. Yes, I think, I call it the Taj Mahal. I just think it's so exciting how the whole valley visits our library. It's not just, and that's where the regional comes in, kind of, more than Pitkin and Eagle County.
Kind of the whole country.
Yeah, they come from
At the
everywhere.
bookstore, there are people from all over,
Yeah.
and they're always thrilled.
They are.
And very complimentary.
They are. And so then, I guess in 2010 is when the bookstore, the Friends of the Bookstore opened.
I remember putting up those shelves with,
I know.
pinching our fingers.
Yeah.
Tell us your name.
Catherine Reppa, and I volunteered at the bookstore, right across the hall.
And help build the inside.
Yeah, you built the shelves too?
When we ordered shelves and we put them up,
And then you got the carts.
yeah, but we put them up and we had to constantly move them to figure out,
The height of the books and,
because we weren't builders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't have a textbook to go by.
one time someone came in from, I'm not sure where the person came from, but from this door. So came this way, looked into the bookstore and went, is this the library? Keep on walking.
Yeah, there's this big building and this is all there is? Yeah, they've said that to me too sometimes. I started 3 years ago as a volunteer, and I'm excited about it now for sure. Like, I wonder why I didn't do it 7 years ago, but anyhow, this is where I am now and it's
All that
fun.
shelving.
I know,
you missed out
I missed on all the hard work. I got here while it's been a wonderful library, and the children's parts of it. The library in Lions Park was neat too, because that's when my children were young, and they had great projects and programs, and I think Barb was instrumental in children. I don't know if she'll admit that, but I think children was a top priority.
I have two of my own, that's all I can say.
Yeah,
And they had the access to the park, which was.
right, out the back door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Linda Slayball was the children's librarian, and she was
Absolutely wonderful.
wonderful. But we laugh that retired teachers come to the library and work. And what's better, I mean, that's wonderful, because they love children. So, any questions? You all want to ask each other questions? Any comments? Debbie?
This is going way back, but before the log cabin, the bookmobile that came,
Oh, yes.
does anybody know where it came from? Was it Aspen
Probably
or Eagle or
Glenwood,
Glenwood or?
Eagle? I don't know, I barely remember that. Because it probably just came to
It
town.
comes to Main Street just like on a Saturday morning, so like every 2 weeks or something. It wasn't very often.
And you were able to check out.
You had to go down there and you had to check out books. Yep. It was just like a van with books in it.
which was the same size as the little one.
Yeah, same size as the log cabin. You know, I've got a couple books if anybody wants them, the Danielson book about Basalt, and there was no mention anywhere about a library, which surprised me. There was organizations back in the early 1900s in Basalt, you know, back in, and Steve's gonna talk about a literary club that was in the area, and some different things, you know, we had a ladies' aid group, and you had your Catholic church, and they had their groups and things, but it never did mention a library, so I really do think the back of the Methodist church and that little log cabin was the beginning of a library type thing. And Steve Childs, tell me what you wanted to talk about your parents.
So there were at least two organizations I remember that my mom joined shortly after we moved here. One was the Basalt Homemakers Club.
Yeah.
And it was all women, they would get together and I think
Once
they
a
would
month,
share
my mom-
recipes and probably do sewing and
And they were
gossip,
service
probably a
too.
lot of
A lot of
gossip.
talking, and they did service things. I think they probably, yeah, they helped different groups. Yeah.
Then there was another club called the Basalt Literary Cirrhosis Club.
Oh, yes, yes.
Now,
And that's mentioned in the book.
I looked up, I just Googled Basalt Literary Cirrhosis Club. The first thing that popped up was this notice of my mom and dad being inducted into the Aspen Hall of Fame. And it mentions in here that my mom was, she helped found the Basalt Library, volunteered as a Blue Lady and a Girl Scout leader. She was a member of the Basalt Band Mothers, the Basalt Literary Cirrhosis Club, and the Basalt Homemakers Club. So the Cirrhosis Club, then I did more research, and the Cirrhosis Club started in New York City in 1868, I believe it was. And they said it was the first women's organization in the United States. And another thing I saw said that the Basalt Literary Cirrhosis Club was the first women's club in the state of Colorado.
Wow.
Now, I don't know whether that's true or not,
No,
but
it is.
this one thing said
That was
that.
in the cirrhosis club.
And I believe they used to donate books to us. I think that we probably still have book plates in the front of some of the books from them.
Yeah. And I remember, well, I think what they did was like a book club, basically. Somebody would read a book and then give a report on it, and they would talk about it. That's kind of what I mean, I never went to the meetings, but I remember
That's what I
my
would
mom
think,
talking about that. And there was a funny incident that happened. There was a newspaper article about the Basalt Literary Cirrhosis Club. And I thought maybe I'd be able to find that online, but I haven't so far. But there was a Valley Journal, or there were some different newspapers that were here for a little while and then went away. I think the article was in one of those. But it mentioned all the women who belonged to the Cirrhosis Club, and it called them charter members.
Oh.
Well, charter members, it was formed back in the 1910s or 20s. So this is in the 1960s. They're not going to be charter members anymore.
Could be a mistake, huh?
That's just the wrong choice.
Because I know in the book it.
Wrong choice of words.
Wrong choice, yeah.
But
They probably reestablished the group. They probably had gone down, and now that this group.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know that it continued all through the Depression and everything. I would be really surprised if it had. So maybe they kind of reformed it, and I think it should start again now.
So did it, they probably met once a month. Did you belong to it? Was it once a month?
And we went to different, your grandmother was.
My grandma Louise.
And, yeah, to different people's houses. And I can tell
And what did
those
you-
people were readers.
And so it was like a book club now.
No, it was a book club, yeah.
Mhm.
So how many years, when did that end here then?
Well,
80s?
no, I would say, well, maybe the last part of the 80s. Oh, maybe.
Did you meet at the libraries, or you went to
No.
each other's homes?
Yeah.
And that's what that Homemakers Club was. My mother and my mother-in-law, Nancy's mother-in-law, Dwight's mom, they were in that Homemakers Club too. And I remember as a young girl going with them, and I also went to Ladies' Aid, the Methodist Ladies' Aid meetings, to all these little ladies' houses. And the Ladies' Aid was more church. They, would have a church lesson, and then they would sell cards. It was to make money for the church. And Mrs. Elmont, remember, she had her basket full of cards, and they sold cards, and they sold calendars, and they sold candy, and it was kind of like a walking bake sale. But any way they could to make money to pay the insurance on the church.
Is that the same group that did sweet peas at the train?
Yeah. In Aspen?
Yeah.
They did sweet peas in Aspen, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. But, and most of those ladies in the Homemakers Club didn't work. They were homemakers. They were not employed. They stayed home with their kids. And so it was a way for them to get together once a month with other women. A lot of them from Snowmass Valley and Basalt area. Not so much the Frying Pan, I don't think. Was your mom and lady on Homemakers?
Well, we lived at Snowmass.
You were Snowmass too, so, yeah. So it's like the modern day book club or get together group. We still stitch. There's a bunch of us that still get together on Tuesdays and stitch, which is a spin-off from the Homemakers. So it's just our ladies chat group, I guess. We get a little sewing done.
So one of my thoughts is that probably a lot of volunteers at the library were in the
The same.
cirrhosis club. Maybe all of them, maybe,
It was a spin-off. Yeah.
maybe, I don't know
Which came
which
first?
came first. Maybe they were all volunteers at the library and then decided to
Have a
get
group.
this literary cirrhosis club going again.
Well,
Now,
I think
everybody
it's-
wonders about the word cirrhosis, and this article said it's actually a botanical term. It's the description of some type of flower.
It's not the same as the liver disease, it's not the same.
No, right.
Doesn't have anything to do, it's not
They could be
related.
Whether they drank at the meeting or not. Oh dear, any questions, anything else we want to chat about? When did the regional happen? You said that happened when we were probably,
In order to build the library, they had to have the funding, and to get that, they had to be on the ballot, and the taxpayers had to agree,
so that's when it became regional, I'm sure.
Yeah.
At some board meeting,
Because
it
that
fell
was
in
the
way.
basis. That was the, yeah.
I think it's a regional library district because Pickens County has a library district, Eagle County has a library district, and the actual, physical boundaries of the land region that this district serves is regional in that it encompasses what probably used to be Pickens County Libraries District and Eagle County's Library District, so it's regional
Yeah,
in that sense.
makes sense.
But it's a part of two counties that also have their own county library, or a county library district.
I have a question, is the library, I'm sure we're still getting new members to the library every day.
Lots.
Do you, I don't know how many members you have or anything,
Well,
just an estimate?
yeah, that's a tough question to answer. We previously had never deleted anyone from the system, until it's a state library standard that you keep your records up to date, and you can't just keep people in there forever.
Oh.
So this year, we finally did a big delete of people whose accounts were last used more than 7 years ago, and that also didn't owe any money. So before that, we had over 28,000 records in the
Oh, wow.
system, and we have a population of 12,000. We all know that we serve more than just the people who live here, but I don't know the number
Yeah, I was just
currently, but
curious.
it's, and then every year we'll do an annual delete of old records, meeting those same criteria. But I'd be more interested to know, like, how many people come to the library and use it as a space, and, how many people are checking out books every year, and those kinds of numbers are more relevant than
Yeah.
the number of library card accounts
I
that
was
we
just
have.
curious, that's a good
Yeah,
number.
for sure, it's a great question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wonder who was the first card, huh? Charlotte, maybe.
No, I used to know, there's a book. You had to sign your name on the book, and then they would give you your card. I was the 34th person in 1974 to do that, and I remember going back to look to see, and it was somebody like Maud Elmont, or I don't know who. it was.
Yeah, one of the
It
old
was,
timers, Eva Hire or somebody,
A Williams. somebody.
Yeah.
Probably a Grange.
Might have been
Grange.
great.
Probably not.
They're kind of bookworm people, aren't they? Yeah. Might have been a Redmond, who knows, huh? When did you move here?
I moved here in 75.
75. The 70s, that seems when a lot of growth happened, a lot of people.
I was kind of laughing because when I started the dance team, we invited CU cheerleaders to come from Boulder to help our dance team. And they saw the library and they were like, oh, great, there's an Applebee's. There's somewhere to eat in Basalt, and I know that's our post office. And I remember the girls were like, what do you do in this town? They were just laughing when you said that.
Cheerleaders.
Yeah. There's nothing.
Let it go.
That was Gwen Smith, yes. She taught a lot of children to dance. Still do, don't they? It was fun. It was fun. Pat is a new, very new friend of the library. October is a year. Good. Yeah. And how many do we have, Catherine? I don't know. Oh, we have what, 20?
Around
20. Yeah. So that
We don't have anybody on Saturdays.
We keep
Throwing that out.
We keep the bookstore open usually from 11 to 5, most every day. He works a couple hours, and thank all the volunteers throughout all the years that have done that, for sure.
So Janice, you mentioned all the school teachers who end up working at the library after they retire. There's a couple reasons for that. If they're working for the school district, they weren't getting any tax paid into Medicare or Social Security.
Social Security.
It was getting paid into the PERA program.
Right.
So that in order to collect Medicare,
Social Security, yeah.
the teachers and principals and everybody would have to get a Social Security job after retiring from the school and work so many quarters in order to qualify to get Medicare. So teachers looking for a job, they're lifelong learners.
Right.
What better place to work than at a library where there's lots of books and people learning and asking questions about
Their interest
doing research.
continued. Yeah, makes sense. A lot of our students have come back too. I know there's a couple, right now you have students, and younger people working in the library, which is great. Nathan. What do you remember? What do you remember about the little library?
Speaking of teachers, I'm Nathan Child, and yeah, I remember when I started, I had, I think, 4 of my former teachers working here. My second grade teacher, Miss Boyer, I think Boyer.
Okay.
My 4th grade teacher, Miss Palmer.
Yeah.
Miss Lessig was here, and I never had Miss Slaybaugh, but she was my brother's teacher. And it took a really long time to stop calling them by their last names, or yes,
Mrs., yeah.
start using their first names. It seems like a ways, but yeah, I remember I grew up in the library in Lions Park, and you know, I remember the kids area and I don't know if there even was a YA section at that point. I think it was just the kids.
Oh,
room.
yeah, well, it's around the corner, one wall, on the other side of the children's room.
Maybe started at some point. Somebody came up with
Youth
the idea,
group, youth books.
but the kids section was maybe, I don't know, 15 feet by 15 feet or something like that. It was pretty small, but I do remember. I think, you know, shortly after the first internet I ever remember was in that library. I would go and try to learn, you know, Beatles songs, click on a song. It would take about 2 minutes to load on the internet. But, I remember also as a kid accidentally pulling out one of the metal rods with the card cutter.
That was you!
And dumping in the drawer all over the ground. I was pulling it out and it just went everywhere.
Explain what those cards are.
Yeah.
Because young people listening to this do not know what those cards were.
Yeah, but there are no young people here.
No, but they'll be on tape.
Yeah, I mean,
Card catalog, is that what it was called?
we just individually created or typed, you know, every single record of every item in the library, every book, and I think, could you search for it alphabetically by author or by title? Were there 2 cards?
Or by subject.
And subject, yeah.
Yeah, that's called before computer.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I got a job here with that on my record.
Well, we'll talk later.
Confessions 101.
Before the internet, I was just explaining to some young child, before the internet in the old library, I used to be up until 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, and I would be there at 7:45, and someone would call from the bar down the street, and you could understand what they were saying, who won the World Series in 1957? Because there was no phone, there was no internet, so you would run around and take the book of baseball statistics and look at it.
Because they were having a discussion at the bar.
Yeah, there was a bet. A couple times I remember somebody said, I won, it was the Yankees. Those are the
That's
old
what,
days.
yeah, think about it,
Yes,
how the information wasn't at our fingertips.
it was the last time the Yankees.
It was the last time?
Yeah, and I'm Joseph Crange. I didn't introduce myself last time, but that's actually why the Guinness Book of World Records exists, to answer bar bets.
Bar bets.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So what do you, come back here, Joseph. Tell us, you used the library. What did you remember as a child with the library?
I think I remember the first time I was at the library was the same day that I had first gone to the school library in kindergarten. And when Mom said, hey, do you want to go to the library? I was so excited because I had been there earlier that day and I knew which book I wanted to get. Well, here I was at a brand new library and I didn't know where the book was, so I probably just picked something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been patronizing the library since I was 5 years old in 1989.
And now he's an employee.
Yes, yes, from last year. And one thing about the library I remember is, not that it mattered to me, but there was only one thing that you could do there, and that was read, and that was fine with me. Mom or Dad would drop me off at the library, and I would just sit there for 5 or 6 hours reading. Well, no, probably not that long. A couple of hours, and when they would come back, they would always ask whoever was at the desk, did he behave himself? I didn't even know he was here. He just sat in the corner reading.
That and the $5 you used to slip us was.
Oh, you know how long it took me to save up that kind of money?
Tell your mom what she wanted to hear, right? No, and I think we do as a library kind of be a babysitter sometimes in the after-school programs. And there's summer programs. I remember when, summer programs, libraries always had some kind of a summer reading program, even way back when, where you wrote down how many books you read during the summer, and it was in conjunction with the school. Just so many good things that the library does. Dwight?
Yeah, did the Rebecca's and Oddfellows ever have anything to do with the library?
I don't think too much. They ended up opening a thrift store in Carbondale. So I don't think they were that involved in the library, and I think that's where my mom and dad were more involved, and that's probably why we weren't involved in getting the library. I'm sure we voted for the library, but we weren't directly involved in volunteering.
The reason I asked was because the Rebecca's and the Oddfellows, along with the Homemakers Club, gave the school bus people and the school district money for radios in the school bus.
I remember that back.
And Basalt became the first school buses in the Roaring Fork School District to have radios, two-way radios.
For safety uses.
Yeah. And then Gene Schilling got the Rebecca's in Carbondale to donate money, and so Carbondale became the second schools to have school buses to have radios. And one of the administrators in Glenwood was adamantly against it and said the drivers could go to some house and use their telephone. That was what came to us. But the two-way radios turned out to be a very big help if a child was missing. We could contact the bus he was supposed to be on or whatever and see if he was there or if he got off somewhere else.
Safety, yeah.
And it was usually find the child first and then make sure he's okay.
Right. Well, and I think the Lions Club, I know the Basalt Lions Club was instrumental in a lot of things in the valley with the schools. They always helped the schools.
But those were the two organizations that
Right.
I never helped out with that.
In this room, which is, I think, the cultural center of the city, I was here the nights that Doc Eason put those bills up there on the ceiling, and every time I come in here, I'm glad to see those. Because we are doing things, they are doing things now in this room that we never had the opportunity in the little bitty, in the original library, there wasn't any room to do anything like that.
And I remember being in this room for a program, there weren't many of us, although it was a great program, and the lights went out, and you came in and said, the library is closing, there's a fire. Remember, Lake Christine?
The light
And so the few of us, we just went out in the parking lot, we saw, some wisps, and I live in Missouri Heights, no problem.
July.
Yeah.
Up the hill.
And she was here,
Yeah, we hauled. So scary.
That was scary, yeah.
So sad.
I think we were
2018,
19.
2019, the fire. We were very blessed, 4 years, if the wind had come the way it was supposed to come, a lot of the town would have been gone, yeah. But then it was also used as a community, I think, got involved with the community, didn't you use it? The rooms and things were always used for the community.
The night that it started, we were able to sleep in our place, but then the winds changed and started coming across what I call the meadows, or it's a Basalt Mountain. And then all of that area was evacuated.
Yeah.
Really scary. And I can remember standing out across the road, watching it burning over there, across from Whole Foods and that area.
That was
So sad.
sad time. All right, any more things about the library? What do we think? Anything? Come on, Linda. I know I'll never get Linda and Barb together again. It's taken them 2 years.
Barb, do you remember, when did Charlotte start her music program? Because I just remember so many great concerts in
Oh,
Missouri.
concerts.
And I know that,
Yeah.
did that start right when the new building came?
No, Charlotte started working for us across the river, and there was always something going on.
Music.
She was to me, the heartbeat of the library. You didn't know what libraries could be when we were in a small building, but you knew, librarians knew, and you could go up to Pickens County, and they were always doing things, but it all fell together really well.
What is her last name? Charlotte
McLean.
She would have started working at the library in 1998 or 1999. And so did the music program start shortly after that, or how long did it take her to kind of get settled and start?
Somebody should call her and ask her, because we didn't have large groups. But we did have that small room about the size of, a little bit bigger than the bookstore. There was a small room. Authors would come in there, but that you have to have critical mass.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a spot like this, a space like this, that's easy. And parking. Parking turns out to be pretty important.
parking.
Yes. We had, 5 or 6 spaces in front of the library.
Mhm.
That library then since has been taken over by the town of Basalt, and the planning department is currently in the old library at the Lions Park that we talk about is now part of the town hall. A lot of changes have happened. Now we have a brand new park, and it's just kind of fun to see all the changes that have gone on through Basalt in all these years. But people are still friendly here. I think everyone at the library, you walk in, it's just friendly. It's just, people comment. They come up Valley and stop at the bookstore. At least, a lot of people at least once a month, sometimes more often. And they say, and we come to this library because it's just the best one in the valley. And we all agree. We should put a donation can out there, don't you think?
Janice, one thing I'm interested in, this has been such an amazing conversation. We can get an automatic transcript from the video, but then I can have a volunteer watch the video and edit that transcript to make sure it's accurate.
Oh, sure, I can do that.
Well, we can do that as a library. We'd love to do that
Okay.
if we can help that way.
Sure.
And
Post it wherever too.
then we'd love to have like I would love to create a page on our website of just kind of detailing some of the.
History of the library.
History,
That was my dream, it's great, I think there's a lot of people that we probably don't ever know, who look up the library, or interested. They come from wherever, and library's been important in their lives.
If I'd known
Thank
this, I
you.
would have dressed better. So could we do it again? I'll come back next week.
Sure, I would like, but you do have to wear hat and gloves.
I have gloves.
Oh, I don't.
And a tiara.
A tiara.
Tiara.
Bells too.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great time just to say thank you to these two ladies, because without them, we wouldn't have all this.
Two people did not do this.
Or even close.
No, it took a decade.
And a village.
It did, it took the whole village.
But you certainly were the faces that people saw, you know.
Well,
Good or bad.
There's just so many people
Yeah.
have volunteered through the years that you just can't even begin to.
I have a little anecdote.
Oh, good, let's end with that.
The old library. It was 2005, and I was going to China. And I remember telling you about it. I don't know, I was going to get a book to do a little research or something. And so Barb goes, a program. When you get back, you're going to do a slideshow about China. And we're going to call it, if I can remember back that far, China, the wall, the people, the shopping. Well, it never happened because I said, I have no idea how to put a slideshow together, and you know what, I still don't. And we just dropped it.
program.
It is a good program. There we go.
Put together
What if we did sometimes just have people come talk about their travels? Wouldn't that be fun, you know? Because she does travel, she's going to Japan. Just people talk about their travels.
I had a
It's the
whole,
tech part that
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to do.
I had a China, well, maybe it was Japan and China slideshow on one carousel that I did it for different class, school classes.
That would be.
They're probably all still sitting in that carousel. I don't even know if we have a slide
1900.
projector anymore. That was really fun to be able to have it all there.
We're talking our age, aren't we?
They're
Now they have-
really interesting.
Now you scan them and download them, and I don't know what the other
they're just
terms are.
digital from the beginning.
Digital, yeah.
They've got a tech department here.
I know. Joseph knows how to do that. All right, well, we're all gonna think up new programs for Joseph.
Where's my picture? Could I pass it around?
Anyhow, thank you all.
Oh.